So just stepped off the train at Waterloo and heading out past this rank of taxis today. It's a bit overcast, but that should be okay for what I'm up to, which I expect to be quite a lot of architectural images. And I'm going to walk down from Waterloo just south of the river, heading west, so upstream towards Vauxhall, where there's the MI6 building. From there, the plan is to head down towards Battersea Power Station, taking in the sky pool, which I haven't yet photographed, but have seen many times from the train, and New Covent Garden Market, perhaps, various bits and pieces on the way. Off we go. Nice textures in the flagstones here. Maybe something looking back the other way. A few more buildings at the other end. Quite a lot of these tunnels underneath the railway line coming out of Waterloo heading south. A lot of people about. Heading down to the river, back under the railway. Tide's out at the moment, not as far as it goes, but you can see a little bit of the foreshore here, some gulls and a lot of stones and things. Not a lot of people realise that the Thames through London is actually tidal, so you get high tides, low tides twice a day, and an enormous amount of stuff gets picked up by what they call mudlarkers, people who actually have to have a permit to go down on the foreshore and pick things out. Old clay pipes, bits of crockery, stuff going right back to the Romans and beyond. And I'm reading a fascinating book about it at the moment, and I'll perhaps link that in the video. And then turning around, facing east, you've got Parliament Building and a bus going over the bridge. Lambeth Bridge? I think so. Again, another tunnel under the railway lines, people moving through this time. Lights coming in from the sides here, nice diagonals. Silhouette of the chap at the end. Possibly, maybe a bit far away with the 28. I could move closer. Vauxhall going up. Morning, birdie. This is when you like those moody skies. So I've got focus to infinity. I'm shooting at f4, which doesn't really matter when you focus to infinity. I'm shooting at 1/500th of a second. I've got my highlights protected, so I might just want to bring exposure compensation up a spot. That's a bit better. Quite dramatic architecture here. Around to MI6, watching the world. Quite a lot to see here, really. Planes coming into Heathrow. So if I can catch one between the tower blocks. And these great big steel protuberances, which is, I think, Vauxhall bus depot. Pretty sure. So the tube is over there. So this is the bus depot. So I've got this little frame here shooting through the bus. There's the bus to the doors, and I've got a 50mm lens on now, which just neatly fits that frame, looking through to the bus shelter on the other side with 3 people sitting in it. May not be much, but it may be something. Maybe somebody needs to come through this side of the shelter and get a bit of a silhouette. There's a fleeting bit of sunlight now showing on the sides of the tower blocks. Might bring some interesting light, maybe some reflections a little bit later. I'm very struck by these 6 old Georgian houses clinging on despite all of the development around them. 10 years ago, none of these blocks were here, and it's all just being developed now. Progress. I don't know whether it's a good thing or not. I mean, cities are dynamic places that are always changing, but it's good to leave something of the past, and these houses here all seem to be still going strong. So here's a place I've seen from the train many times and wanted to get to for a few years. I'm so glad I did, because the timing's pretty good. Watch this. Up we go. How fabulous is that? What a place to swim. Good on you, mate. Love it. And I think actually the cloudy sky is the perfect backdrop. He's swimming, what's that, probably 100 feet up. And even without him in it, the water just looks beautiful. So yeah, the new American embassy, 2018 it was opened. I remember walking around here when it was a building site and surrounded by a little artificial moat thing, I suppose. And right next to it, the sky pool, 35 metres up, breaststroke. Oh, it's a crawl. Anyway, impressed. So it struck me that as I've walked along today from Waterloo, which is probably maybe 3 miles from here, apart from the views of the Houses of Parliament that we had earlier on and some of those back streets, those little 6 houses in the middle of the tower blocks, there isn't much that somebody from 100 years ago would recognise around here. I guess the river. I lived here 35 years ago and it wasn't like this. Completely different. Although cyclists still run red lights. Tideway Village. Amazing little community. Houseboats. In amongst all the tower blocks. Quite incredible. So here's our first glimpse of Battersea Power Station. 1930s Art Deco building. Once supplied power for a fifth of London, and now it's all accommodation and retail offices. It closed, I think, in '83, just before I arrived in London to live, and it was just derelict for a long time. And they gradually took off those 4 towers, put them back, and they've reopened it. And it's a fine building, famous for the cover of Pink Floyd's Animals, of course, and a bit of a history lesson, designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, who also designed the red phone boxes. So yeah, Battersea Power Station, it still looks pretty close. It's still a 15-minute walk away. One last quick glimpse westbound. Just see the Shard. Where is it? Hard to make out in here. Just in there. There's still very much the back of beyond down here though. Construction everywhere and lots of bits closed off. Nice and gritty. There's so much going on here, photographically. I almost don't know where to begin, but I've got this nice walkway coming across. And then you can see, sorry, I've been buzzed by a security guard. I've got this nice walkway coming across, and then you can see the tower and people coming across on the bridge here. But you've also got down below, I've got this lower level. And I don't know whether you can see, but in here, on the underside of the bridge, it's all silver. And you're getting lots of reflections in there as well. And even with the 28, I haven't got enough quite to get it all in. Don't know, range is going to struggle, but it's too much, man. Don't think it's going to work. And then down on the lower level, you've got the sun coming back directly off the windows here, which is giving a nice silhouette. Opportunity for some silhouettes. People moving through. There we go. Thank you, madam. Not boring. We definitely need more stuff like this. The other thing I need to do is eat. It's 2 o'clock and I've been walking since 9 and I've had a flapjack, half a flapjack and a coffee. One of the first laws of street photography is to survive. So, time to pick apart some of the images I'd made during the day, and I'm going to start with this one.
The sky pool, I think, was really the one place that I wanted to get on that walk, and aside from the nostalgia of having lived in Battersea back in the 80s, it was really that sky pool that drew me to do that walk from Waterloo through Vauxhall to Battersea. And the American Embassy, that whole area that's been redeveloped and where the sky pool is somewhere that I've watched develop over the last 10 years, and I've passed the sky pool many times on the train, got grab shots from it with a phone, but I've never actually been up close to it. So that was the aim of the exercise. Let's have a look at the first image. So several things to say about this, really. The clouds, it was an overcast day, as I began by saying at the start of the video, and actually I think that really helps. This image I've actually reduced the exposure on, I've darkened it to make the most of these clouds and the textures in them. In fact, arguably I could have made more of the sky. But I like the darkness in the buildings as well, and to me they contrast really well with the light that's been picked up in the pool. Light, I guess, that's coming more horizontally from perhaps over this way, but it's really picked out the light in the pool, and I haven't had to bring that up in post-processing at all. The dynamic nature of the view from underneath, I think, is really important in this image, because it does give you this V. These two strong lines give a real dynamic, and the whole V shape makes it a very dynamic image with the pool on one of the thirds. I love the textures in this sort of greeny grey slate brick. I don't know whether you can have slate bricks, but they've got this sort of tiled frontage, and you've got the nice lines in these almost industrial balconies here, and in the glass you've got really lovely repetition in the buildings, really nice textures in there. I think the key thing though is the surreal aspect of it, because here is a swimming pool, somebody swimming in the sky, in itself is surreal. And there's a lot in street photography where surrealism, I think, can play a really big part, and that's really what I set out to achieve today. Possibly it would have worked in black and white. I'm sure it would have worked in black and white because it's a strong image, but I really like this sort of aqua, for want of a better word. The ripples, the colour here is really strong in contrast to the rest of the image. I love the soft textures of the water against the hard images of the building and the rhythmic lines that appear there. And here we have our hero of the image, our swimmer, this chap who was going backwards and forwards as if for my benefit, really, 35 metres or whatever it is above the ground. That human image, the vulnerability, the softness, really stands out, I think, in this harsh built urban environment. I guess I wished he'd been doing breaststroke rather than crawl. How fantastic it would have been to have that sort of star-shaped image with his limbs extended, but I'll settle for the crawl. It's yeah, I think it's the one thing about this image that I wish his body was in a stronger shape. Sticking with the sky pool, next up is this image, which I've processed in black and white. Again, this image I think really does pick up on the surrealist theme. Here you've got a human figure seemingly above the trees, and it's a natural shape in a very unnatural format, I suppose. The format being the pool, these rigid lines which are equally balanced in the image. They both run down the side with I don't know, maybe a sixth of the image either side. So it's a very, very rigid structure, and yet we have this very human, soft shape going through it, and alongside that you've got this very natural shape of the branches from the tree. So it takes a little bit of unpicking for the eye to understand it, because we're quite used to the idea of looking up through the branches of a tree and seeing sky. We're not used to looking up through the branches of a tree and seeing a body of water and a body of a human. So that's the surreal element kicking in. I like the way that some of the branches of the tree are soft and out of focus, and some further away down towards the bottom of the image here are pin sharp. The pool itself and the ripples in it are sharp, as is the outline of the figure silhouetted against the comparatively bright sky above. But it's the contrast between the softness of the natural elements in here, the tree and the man swimming, and the very urban rigid lines that we've got there that work for me, as does the surreal nature of somebody seemingly swimming through the sky and through the branches of a tree. I suppose I can't quite decide whether it would have been better with the figure down here. I did take some where the man was swimming and he wasn't entwined in the tree, but having him up there I think actually adds something. It's still very evidently a man. He's not deformed by the shapes of the sticks moving through, the twigs moving through the branches. He's very, very clearly a man, and he seems to be almost trapped by the branches in there. And I think the black and white really works, because you've got the subtle shades of grey, you've got the very strong blacks and whites of the tree and the man there, and I think the brightish blue aqua of the water would have been a distraction. So black and white for me. Although on the walk I visited several places, starting off with the market at Lower Marsh, running or wandering through the tunnels beneath the railway line to Vauxhall and then on to Battersea Power Station. To me, the two real key parts of it were the sky pool, which I've just shown, and the power station itself. And the next three images, yes folks, there are 5 images today, the next 3 images really focus on the power station. And the first one I want to share is this one, which is slightly goofy I suppose, but that's kind of what I like about it. So this image, for those people who know London, it's very clearly Battersea Power Station, but the joke in it, it's almost like the elephant in the room. The power station is almost out of sight. Just to have it hinted at by its 4 iconic towers, to me, is what makes this image. And anybody taking a photograph of the power station is not going to take an image where most of it is obscured by, let's face it, a fairly grotty grey wall. But I actually like the grey wall, and let me explain why I really like some of the elements in this foreground. First of all, you've got this grotty grey wall, as I said. It's crumbling, there are bits where the paint's chipped away, there are bits where the paint's uneven, there are cracks appearing in the wall, there are even plants growing on the top of it, so it sort of says a little bit about urban decay. You've also got this highly patterned, highly textured, orangey, white, grey foreground, which recedes towards the wall, and then you've got this electrical, I don't know what it is, box of some sort, this green graffitied box, which is almost, well, it's quite understated in the corner, but it's still very apparent. And these are the things that the photograph appears to be of, except that the power station is peeking over the top of the wall. I like the way these harsh textured elements of the city contrast really nicely with this beautiful soft cloudy sky, blue sky, wispy clouds, and then the harshness of the walls and the flooring here, and these very prominent 4 towers of the power station sticking over the top. It's a kind of joke photo, I suppose, in a way, because it hints at the power station rather than being of the power station. It doesn't really give you a sense of scale, because you've got no, if you haven't seen the power station before, you've got no real idea of how far away it is. It's not a very big stretch of the imagination to think that actually this could be a piece of white garden furniture, a garden table upturned on the other side of the wall. You know, you don't have that sense of scale, but for those people who know London and know Battersea Power Station, you get the joke. Image number 4 is a much more traditional picture of the power station. You can almost see it in its entirety. I like the combination of the very blue-grey urban environment around it, the construction that's clearly going on here, these black fences behind which there is construction, the blue-grey cold tones of much of the image, and the blue sky, I think contrasts really nicely with the deep reddy brown orange warmth of the bricks of the building and of this smaller building here. And so here we get to see it in these 3 images that I'm sharing with you for the first time. It's more of an establishing shot. Here is Battersea Power Station, and the image works. I like the fact that the zebra crossing is here. The lines have some parallax, they're leading in, and our eye is very much taken down the road. I like the grit, the feel that this is a fairly worn out area. The zebra crossing itself, the white lines are falling apart, there are cracks in the road, the zigzags take us down, and you've even got 1 or 2 people to give us a little bit of a sense of scale and human involvement in the area. A cone, I love cones, and it's always great to get one in an image. And then you've got the power station itself with its 4 towers, and we begin to get a real sense of the scale of this building. It says something to me about the historic industrial might of London compared to what it's become today. You know, this was a power station which powered a fifth of London, but is now a shop and an office. Well, several shops, but you get the feeling, you get the meaning. It's industrial change. It's gone from being industrial to being commercial, but still just a fabulous building. So I actually really like this image, and I can imagine it enlarged and on the wall somewhere. I think it would work in black and white, but as I said, I think it's those cold blue greys and the warm orange golden browns that give you that contrast that makes it work in colour. And finally, this kind of hero shot, I suppose, of the power station, up close and personal. Let's get into this one. So black and white, the brown, orange, red, golden tones of the brick, which worked so well in the previous colour image against the blues of the sky. I didn't want them in here. It's such a striking textural monolith, really. It's just a really imposing building, and black and white with the softness in the whites in the sky. You know, it wasn't a completely blank sky. It had some texture in it, and it just screamed black and white to me. I'm actually really pleased with this image. So lots of things that I like about it. There's a symmetry to the towers, obviously, but in this image they're actually asymmetrical. Possibly this is too close to the edge, but maybe I'm being a bit hard on myself here. I love the texture in the brick. Again, maybe I could have brought the contrast up a little bit in this, but I think it's really strong. I love these lines that lead up all the way through the building. You get an incredible sense of scale here. There are no people, so we don't get a real true sense of scale, but you can see just the beginnings of some branches from a tree down here. But this is vast. This is, you know, industrial architecture at its hugest. And I'm just really pleased with the way the lines all lead up into the sky, and I think it's a really strong image, so I'm really pleased to have created this, and to me it really works in black and white. Enough said, really. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. The book I referred to is this one, Mudlarking by Lara Maitland. I will put a link to it down in the comments below, but please do give me a comment if you want to Tell me anything you've enjoyed about the video, which image you preferred, if you'd like to make suggestions for something I could do in the future. I'm really grateful for you being along for the ride. If you've liked it, please do give me the thumbs up, and if you're enjoying the series, please do subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Take care.